Hello everyone, it's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland reviewer, and I'm here to review Archive. And this is a new film from writer-director Gavin Rothery, who has had a career in art departments and art direction for films. And this is his first feature-length film that he's directing. And it centers on the story of a roboticist, played by Theo James, who's working on creating a robotic body to inhabit the consciousness of his dead wife. And this is very much high concept science fiction, and for the most part Theo James is the main performance in this film, and I haven't seen him in much. I know he was in a lot of films like Divergent and stuff like that, but getting to see him in this film, he does a really solid job as this central figure into the story. You feel for him, he gives a solid performance. And a lot of his acting, despite like a scene with like a Toby Jones and some other scenes with some other actors, especially flashbacks as they show him interacting with his wife, played by Stacey Martin, who does a fine job in this film as well, you see him really interacting with robots. And he's gotten through 3 prototypes. One's really big and clunky and really cannot articulate. One is more humanoid in the way that it looks, but still very much a robot. Except it does articulate, it does have feelings, which complicates things, because he begins spending so much time with this 3rd prototype. And a lot of this film is about loss, and trying to grieve with that, and asking the questions, what would you do to make sure that you can keep your loved ones in your life? Would you try to keep them alive in a robotic body? This asks those kinds of moral questions, and there's some challenges to it. And it's very interesting as it deals with the morality of playing with, like playing God and creating these beings. Do these robots really feel things? Do they feel jealousy when they feel like they're being kicked to the curb for the next one? And there's some of the most interesting parts in this film is through the reactions of this 2nd prototype. And the story, definitely, some of these ideas have been portrayed before. This plot has some particular twists to it, and it sets up some real tension throughout. And there's a couple of moments where I felt on the edge of my seat wondering what's going to happen next. And honestly, one of the more intriguing characters is that 2nd prototype and how it reacts to all of these different decisions that Theo James's character's making. And the special effects in this, for the most part, are really good. For a film that's obviously a smaller budget, it reminded me a lot of Ex Machina. Honestly, a lot of this film reminded me of Ex Machina. There's even a dancing scene with one of the robots. And I feel like this film does borrow a bit from other films, but does enough on its own to focus on its own themes, has interesting enough characters, and some interesting and surprising twists throughout in terms of its story, that I feel like Archive can stand on its own and be a really solid science fiction thriller. And it focuses on those human elements, Theo James's character really loving his wife and doing whatever he can to keep her spirit alive, and making those challenging decisions and being along for the ride, and being interested in enough to see it through the end to see what actually happens. And I felt like I was connected enough to do that. And I love science fiction. I really enjoyed this. If you're into sci-fi, I think you'll get a lot out of this. And even from just like a film watching perspective, even if you're not the hugest fan of science fiction, there's a lot of human elements to this film that I think work pretty well. And I would recommend Archive. It's streaming on Amazon right now, so it's included in Prime, so go check it out. But those are my thoughts on Archive. Let me know what you think, and let's talk some movies. But thank you as always for tuning in and supporting your Wasteland reviewer.